Welcome to K-Drama School. I'm your host, Grace Jung, and class is now in session. I'm recording this on September 19th, Sunday. I know it's airing the next day, but I am just gonna keep it real time for you. I had a pretty good day. Actually, the week started out kind of weird. Like when I landed, I just got back from the road. When I landed in Los Angeles, I saw news that Norm Macdonald had passed away, and Norm Macdonald is like one of my top three favorite comedians of all time. Like I really looked up to Norm Macdonald for his absurd weirdness and his deep sense of privacy and his extraordinary timing as a comedian. Like his sense of timing is unsurpassable. And I just found it heartbreaking to receive that news because I'm already mourning another dead comedian friend. And yeah, what can I say? Like it's always sad when a comedian passes away. I think there's nothing sadder than when a comic dies, because a comedian was somebody that made us all laugh, right? And um comics are very sensitive people, and they're very introspective for the most part, and very lonely people too. So for me, it's heartbreaking when a comic dies. And it was just insane how Norm Macdonald kept the fact that he had cancer for almost 10 years like a complete secret. Just didn't tell anybody, and he just passed away very silently that way. And I was very blue on Tuesday when I got back. The other reason why I was so blue is because the US government, or at least our local state, they have gotten rid of the pandemic stipend that they were offering in conjunction with our unemployment checks, and that basically halved my unemployment, and that puts me in a financial pickle. I mean, no lie, And initially, Tuesday night, I was just kind of reeling in anxiety and panic, along with the grieving, because I had the memorial to attend the next day and all this shit. Uh, but I just knuckled down. I knew what to do. I know how to cope with these kinds of things now. Like, what do? I meditate, right? I practice my EFT. I journal. I do my Oracle deck. I do some illustrations. I do yoga. I exercise, right? And uh, all of these things, within 2 days, I was out of it. I was out of the funk. And honestly, like, I was really surprised at my ability to come out of that funky state so quickly, because 2 years ago, um, around this time 2 years ago, I was also in a financial pickle. And, at that time, I was really fucked because I had no savings, huge debt. My school was fucking me up financially, and I didn't know how I was going to pay rent. Like, I was really, really messed up. And I was just so frozen and immobilized in my anxiety and panic at the time that I just didn't know what to do. But, like, now I'm not like that. It's kind of a miracle. It's kind of miraculous that I'm not like that anymore, and that I still feel good, that I still feel secure and okay, and this past Thursday was actually my last day of insured therapy, because my school insurance has now run out, and now I'm on the state California healthcare plan, which is like, very, very, very minimal, so I won't be able to afford therapy anymore. But like, I remember saying this to my therapist, which is very new. Like, I've never been able to say this before, and I said to her, I was like, When I was having my anxiety attacks, I asked myself, why do I feel anxious if I know that my work is going to pan out? Like, I'm writing my books. I know that's going to work out. So why am I anxious? I am doing comedy all the time. I know that's going to work out. Why am I anxious? I'm applying for jobs every single week. I know that's going to work out. So why am I anxious? And I've never been able to say that before to my therapist. My therapist would say that to me all the time, but I was just, I would just be like, whatever, like, but it's changing. So I'm sort of taking note of these changes, and it's been good for me. So I'm very happy to know that I've made progress. And this particular therapist, like, she's been remarkable. Like, I've been in cognitive behavioral therapy for like 12 or 13 years, and this particular therapist that I've been working with for 2 years, like, she and I made leaps and bounds in terms of progress with my health, and I really have to give her credit. And she was telling me how she appreciated me as a client and a patient, because I would show up and I would always be receptive to the things that she would say, and I would go and put them into practice. Like, I would apply them. And she said that, not all patients do that, and that I was somebody who would listen and go and practice and apply and do the work. And she says she appreciated that. And I was just like so emotional on Thursday, because this past week, the past like 2-3 weeks, I suppose, was just like an emotional kind of thing for me. But I was crying a lot when my therapist was saying this, because I just felt such deep, immense gratitude towards her. Like, I feel very lucky to have worked with her, and I am so grateful for all the progress that I made with this therapist. So, if any of you guys are, feeling, uh, I don't know, stuck in your kind of emotional and mental chaos, then just know that there is always hope. Okay, like, cognitive behavioral therapy, that worked for me. I don't think therapy is the only thing that helps you make big changes. You have to also do the work. Like, I meditate daily, and I do exercises to help with my mental and emotional stability. So that is also necessary. I think some element of spirituality also helps. So you have to kind of triangulate between these three things in order to see a lot of progress. But I'm just saying that there is hope, okay? Because I used to feel like I'm just trapped with this kind of brain, and I'll never be happy. But that's just not the case. Like, I am very grateful to myself even for having made so much progress. Um, and you know what? Today, like, I had a pretty decent day. Like, I woke up kind of early. I went for a long walk at the park, and I played some wall tennis for about an hour, and I got a little bit of writing done, and I'm feeling good. Oh, and I also met Bobby Lee last night. Yeah, I met Bobby Lee last night. He was very nice. I was at the Comedy Store to watch my friends do some sets, and Bobby Lee was there at the patio smoking a cigarette. So I went up to him and I said, "Hi, I'm Grace," and he was like, "Hi, Grace." Grace what? I was like, Grace Jung. And he was like, Grace Chung? I was like, no, it's Grace Jung. He's like, oh, are you Chinese? I was like, no, I'm Korean, motherfucker. And he's like, oh, okay, like Ken Jung. I was like, yeah, like Ken Jung, but I spell my name with a Jung, not Jeong, like Ken Jung does. And he said, yeah, I like the Jung spelling better. And I said, thank you, I agree. So it was just nice to meet a comedian that I really admire, that I love, whose podcast I was listening to obsessively, Tiger Belly. I was a huge fan. I'm kind of laying low on other podcasts right now. I'm only listening to WTF at the moment, but it was cool to meet Bobby Lee at the Comedy Store last night. I'll just put it that way. And you know what? Like, good things are kind of flowing in. Like, since last night, like, I got 2 emails that were promising, and I felt good. And tonight, I was at the Hollywood Improv, and did two. I was sitting through 2 mics. I was there since 5 p.m. and I left around 10. So I was there for 5 hours, and I got to go up both times. And also, I got 3 drink tickets for free. What? Like, that was awesome. I also got like a food ticket, which I didn't use. Like, I don't drink alcohol. I don't eat fried foods. So I was just like, I have to give these away. So I gave them away to my friends. And, you know, I had 2 great sets. I laughed a lot. It was fun to see people go up tonight, and I had an awesome evening. So I'm happy to share that with you. Thank you for indulging me. Today, I'm going to talk about a show called Dear My Friends, and it is written by one of the best K drama writers of all time, No Hee Kyung. Okay, No Hee Kyung is known for writing all kinds of amazing shows. She, she's a little, you know, she's a little intense sometimes, but I like her shows. They're kind of cheesy sometimes, but I like them. The one show that's not too cheesy that I really appreciated, but I don't think it did very well, is called Live, which is on Netflix. I remember talking about Live in the episode where Shin Ho Lee was our guest. Check out Live. She also wrote It's Okay, That's Love, which is one of my favorite shows of all time, which I remember talking about when Connor Shin was a guest. She also wrote That Winter, The Wind Blows, which is a super cheesy drama, but it stars some big names. So it has Song Ye-kyo in it and Cho In-sung in it. It's super cheesy. It's super ridiculous, and it's a blast. So check that show out if you haven't. She wrote a terrible show called Padam Padam. Don't watch it. It sucks. It's like the worst show ever. She wrote a show called Worlds Within, which is actually about the K-drama industry. And Song Ye-kyo is in it, and Hyunbin is in it. And they used to date after this show. So if you want to see a fun, tabloidy kind of Korean drama written by the amazing No Hee-kyung, check out Worlds Within. Um, so, dear my friends, No Hee-kyung, this is a very personal kind of drama. A lot of No Hee-kyung's shows have this like mother-daughter conflict thing that goes on. And this is like full on. What I loved about this show is that you have like some of the greats, some of the greatest Korean drama and film actors of all time in this show. So you have the Oscar award winning actress Yoon Ye-jung, okay? So she is in this show. You have Ko Do-shim. Oh my god, Ko Do-shim, she is like this beast, queen beast of a K-drama actress, okay? Like if you want a scary mother, Ko Do-shim is the one, all right? And then you have the fun, playful, goofy, hilarious, almost a stereotypical ajumma actress. Okay, you have Nam Eun-hee. She is also in this drama, and Kim Hae-ja is in this drama. If you are a fan of Bong Joon-ho's movies, then you know who Kim Hae-ja is because she was the star in the film Mother. Okay, and uh, all of this is kind of wrapped up with the youngest actress in this particular show. She's the youngest because she's like, you know, in her 40s, and everybody else on this show, they're like in their 70s or 80s. So Ko Hyun-jung is in this show. I don't know if you guys know this about Ko Hyun-jung, but Ko Hyun-jung used to be a Miss Korea lady. How do you call it? A pageant star? I don't know, but Ko Hyun-jung, she's a big deal. She's a big deal in South Korea. Okay, so she was I don't think she won. She did not win. It was 1989. She was runner up in Miss Korea, but like, you know, she's got the bod, she's got the look, so she just started working as a model and an actress pretty early on. And one of the biggest shows of all time in the mid 90s was called Sandglass or Moreshige, and she was a huge star in that show. It was like one of those shows where everybody in Korea would just close close up shop and go home so that they can watch Sandglass, you know, broadcasting live every single night. It was that popular. It's like one of these classic dramas that people to this day continuously like parody, they continuously reference. It's like one of those shows. It's like, you know, you got to watch The Godfather, right? Well, you also got to watch Sandglass in Korea. So she was the star in that. And she was like quickly one of the highest paid actresses in Korean television in the 90s. But she married this guy she married this Korean chaebol named Chung Yong-jin in the mid 90s. He is a billionaire. He is the CEO of the Shinsegae Group. If you don't know what Shinsegae is, like it's just this huge shopping mall conglomerate in Korea. And he's like this billionaire dude. So she got married to him, but they went through a very ugly divorce in the early 2000s. Okay. Oh, and here's the other thing. Ko Hyun-jung, as soon as she married this guy, she retired from acting, right? Because it's like she doesn't need to work. I mean, she's a billionaire. She doesn't need to work. But, you know, she punched out a couple of kids and then she got a divorce, and it was a very ugly divorce. And this is how fucking petty Korean chaebols are. Okay. So Ko Hyun-jung is like the ex-wife of Shinsegae Group, right? So what do? They ban Ko Hyun-jung from ever being a model for a Shinsegae Group product ever again. Like if there is a product, let's say like I don't know, what's a Korean brand of like makeup? Like is SK2 Korean? I don't know Korean beauty products very well. Let's say there's like an SK2 product, okay? Let's say Ko Hyun-jung happens to be the model that's endorsing this product. Okay, Shinsegae Group would say we will not sell that product in our shopping mall. Like that's how fucking and this is like for life. She is banned for life. Like that's how petty and intense Shinsegae Group is. Like man, just like don't fuck with Korean chaebols or fuck with them, whatever. You know, like I mean, they're so petty. Like people with money are so petty sometimes. Like, fuck you, Shinsegae Group. But then Ko Hyun-jung, she actually comes out okay in the end. All right. So in 2009, she is the how do you say the evil queen in this show called Queen's Handuk, which is like this epic period drama about the first female king of Korea. Yeah, like there was no concept of queen really. Like you wouldn't have a queen who's reigning. Okay, no, she became a Korean king, but she was a woman, so they called her as Hundok Yewang. Yewang means female king. All right, Wangbi is queen. Wangbi is queen. Like you're married to the Wang, the king, but Yewang, that means female king. So that was fucking badass. She didn't play Queen's Hunduk. She played Mishi, which was the evil lady, but she was like amazing in that drama. So that came out in 2009, and that just like made her popularity skyrocket again, and she was doing pretty good. And then Ko Hyun-jung got into a little bit of trouble because she was on this show where I guess she like hit somebody in the face. Like this show called Return came out in 2018, and Ko Hyun-jung played the attorney in that drama, right? But then like I don't know, like maybe five or six episodes in, she got replaced by another actress because she like hit somebody or she kept arguing with the producer. So it was just like really awkward to see a completely different actress playing the same character and watching that series continue. It was just really bizarre. But anyway, Ko Hyun-jung is in Dear My Friends, and she plays this translator woman who is dealing with an ex-boyfriend who got into an accident and he became disabled, so he's in a wheelchair. But Ko Hyun-jung's character's uncle is also a disabled man, and Ko Hyun-jung's mother hates the fact that her brother is disabled and tells Ko Hyun-jung's character never to date anybody who is ill. So that's why Ko Hyun-jung's character breaks up with Choi In-sung's character. Choi In-sung plays the very sexy guy who is dating her. But this show has that theme of disability embedded in there. Okay, so disability is this shameful thing in Korean society, and this show critiques that. It critiques the mentality that people have or the judgment and the discrimination people have when it comes to people with disabilities, okay? And you got to ask this question, why? Why is Korean society anti-disability? All right? Like of course, you know, you could ask this question more generally with any society. Why do most societies hide people with disabilities? In the case with Korea, it's very specific, all right? There's this book written, I forget the scholar's name, but it's called Curative Violence, and it's about the history of disability in South Korea. And South Korea was a very poor country, right? Like not too long ago. Just a few decades ago, it was this third world, torn up, war torn country, right? And what did you have back then? You had a lot of people with disabilities. Okay. You had people who were shell shocked. You had people who had lost limbs. You had people who were obviously, many of them had died. Okay. So you had a lot of intergenerational trauma as well. So you had all these problems. And South Korea did everything they could to reconstruct out of the ashes of the war and hide all of that ugly past. The past with no limbs, the past with some form of disability. They wanted to hide all of it so that they could emulate this first world developed nation status that they presently do project. But what do you have? A high rate of suicide when it comes to parents of disabled children, right? Like there have been a lot of cases where mothers with disabled children will go and kill their kid and go and kill themselves. Like that has been a huge issue in South Korea. And a lot of activists, a lot of people in spiritual work, like religious institutions, they're working with these kinds of families to say, no, like disability is not something to be ashamed of. People who are differently abled are just differently abled, and that is all. And, South Korea is making those efforts, but discrimination is, of course, still very high. It's a huge problem. So, this theme of disability is highly present on this show. And then you have this question of, okay, what about being an elderly person and being discriminated against for that, right? And that's a constant thing because everybody in this show, they are playing people in their 70s for the most part. People who are very ill, people who are losing their memory, okay, suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's, people who are not as strong anymore. And then the other big theme is this exploration of toxic Korean masculinity, okay? And I talk about this with today's guest, Glenn Bolton, who is very, very funny. He's also very smart, and I like a lot of the things that he says. I don't quite agree with everything that he says, but I appreciate his perspectives, especially in our conversation around masculinity. Masculinity, as a lot of you guys already know, is something I study as a scholar and researcher. It is a huge part of my dissertation. And, this question of what makes masculinity toxic is a very important one. Where does this word toxic masculinity even come from in the discourse, right? Why is masculinity toxic and when is it toxic? Okay. Toxic masculinity occurs when the expectation of a man from his society doesn't quite cohere with his own values. All right. So a man has values such as wanting to protect people who are weaker, wanting to protect women and children, standing up for good rights, being a good person, being a decent citizen. Those are his values. But then his actions based on the expectations of other men in that society winds up making him toxic, right? Like go and bully somebody, go and join, I don't know, some violent group and mess people up. This is a really intense drama. There are a lot of trigger warnings. Okay, there's domestic violence in this drama. There's a death of infants in this drama. There's a suicide attempt in this drama. It's a very emotionally intense drama. But I watched it like 4 times, and I remember bawling my eyes out every single time I watched it because it's very well written. It's really well written, and everybody is just a veteran actor, so their performances were just stellar. Okay, Shin Gu's performance playing Kim Seok-kyun was especially moving. All right, so really, I really strongly recommend this show if you're, I don't know, wanting to get some intense kind of thing. All right, I'm so exhausted. I'm gonna end that here. Let's talk to the amazing, very, very funny Glenn Bolton.
Yeah.
The great irony about Hollywood is like people who don't live in Hollywood, like don't live in California, they don't know what a shithole Hollywood can be. But
Oh my
it's
God.
it's like considered this glamorous, beautiful place.
Yeah, like it's kind of wild. Like when I first came to LA, I was like,
Yeah.
wow, wow, like I'm going to Hollywood. Like we're getting off the 101, like by like where the Hollywood Bowl is,
Yeah.
and there's a guy walking up the exit ramp with a samurai sword, shirtless.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, what? Is no one's gonna even acknowledge that? No.
Nobody. Nobody. That's Hollywood. When I was in downtown LA, like I was just walking around with like two friends of mine, there was a man completely naked. No shirt, no pants, no shoes, no underwear, just butt ass naked and just walking across the street. And there was a police officer standing on the other side of the street, just like watching, not doing anything. Like
Yeah,
nobody
yeah.
cares.
It's insane the amount of things you become desensitized to after being here for a while.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Like, and it goes on both ends of the spectrum too. Like, I'm just as desensitized to seeing Mark Wahlberg going down the street in a Rolls Royce as I am
Mm-hmm.
someone sleeping on that same street corner. I was like, yep, well,
Yeah.
this is just
Yeah.
it's just Hollywood. Like,
Yeah. That's how it is. It
yeah,
is fucking wild and weird, yeah. It is wild and weird to like witness that extreme discrepancy.
yeah. Meanwhile, like coming here straight from a place like Kansas where you don't really see either of those two things,
Yeah.
you're just like, whoa, like what the hell is this place?
Can you lower the volume on your laptop just a little bit? Because I'm getting a tiny bit of audio leak. But make sure you can still hear me. Just lower the sound on your laptop just a little bit. You can still hear me okay? All right. That's good. That's a lot better.
Oh,
You
dang.
can still hear me though?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
All right, sweet. Um, yeah, I mean, that would be an extreme jump, right? Because like Kansas is Kansas. I know nothing about Kansas actually. What is that place like?
Well, the part of Kansas I grew up in is probably the least like what you would expect from Kansas. Like
Mm-hmm.
when people think Kansas, they think like totally flat. You can just look out your door, see for
Mm-hmm.
miles. There's no trees,
Mm-hmm.
no nothing. I'm from northeastern Kansas, so it's not
Mm-hmm.
like mountainous like California, but it's kind of hilly and is heavily
Mm.
wooded.
Yeah.
But as far as just the pace of life, totally different. Like
Yeah.
it's not it's not a place where it's hard to get from point A to point B.
Uh-huh.
There's not as much hustle and bustle, at least not when I lived there. It's probably changed a lot over the last five
Right.
years, but it's just an easy place to just kind of live and get by and raise a
Mm-hmm.
family and just
Mm.
keep it chill. Like you can totally do that there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
I wonder.
barbecue's way better.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet. I was actually at a barbecue thing yesterday. You know, Sean's house, right? We did the show there, Al's
Mm-hmm.
show. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we had a big barbecue there, and it was like a mess, you know. Like people brought stuff, but like there was no order. It was just chaos, you know. Everybody ate eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, if Al's on the grill, I have faith. I have faith in his
he was not
barbecue.
on the grill. That
Ah,
is probably the issue. Yeah,
yeah. Because I
yeah.
mean, Texas, they got pretty good barbecue. It's not
Yes.
like I wouldn't put it up with Kansas City. I might be biased, but
Hmm.
it's edible. It's got flavor to it for
Interesting.
sure. Yeah.
That's interesting that you consider Kansas a rival to Texas in terms of barbecue. It's something I've never heard.
Well, this is also coming from somebody who knows very little about Kansas.
Yeah,
You know what I
I've
mean? Just
yeah.
in all fairness, but yeah, like Kansas City's barbecue
Mm,
is insane.
it's
Like,
a thing.
yeah, yeah. Like I would say it's up there with like New York pizza or
Really,
California tacos. Like
really.
it's yeah,
That's saying a lot. Okay. Shit. Like what? Like brisket? Like what are the goodies that you would expect from a
Everything.
standard?
Everything. Like
Everything?
it depends on where you go.
Okay.
Like if you go to Oklahoma Joe's, or now it's
Uh-huh.
called Joe's KC,
Hmm.
if you go there, you're gonna wanna get like the burn ins,
Hmm.
like the
What is
burn in
that?
sandwich,
Okay.
which if you're not familiar with, it's the ends of the brisket that you cut off
Got it.
and then chop
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
up into little pieces.
The smoky charred
And
part. Okay.
yeah, yeah, it's a delicacy. Like if you
Yeah.
go to Joe's KC, especially the original location, which
Yeah.
is in a gas station, there's gonna
Okay.
be a line wrapped all the way around the building
Oh.
because they want to get there before they run out of burn ins.
Okay. Okay. It's limited.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in pretty high demand. If you go to Gates, which is like a really old school joint,
Mm.
you really want to go there and get
Okay.
ribs and sausage. And
Mm.
then each location has its own signature dish. Like there's one Gates in town that does the hot wings. If you want hot wings
Yeah.
from Gates, you have to go to that location.
Okay.
And then yeah,
Hot
each
wings.
location has their own special dish as
Right
well.
on.
So
Yes. That's
yeah,
usually like the way to go. Like, when you go to a restaurant and they don't have a specialty, they're like, we just have everything and they have like 50,000 things on the menu. That restaurant usually tastes like shit. But if
Cheesecake Factory.
but if they are really good at like one thing and they literally sell just that one thing and maybe like some sides, then like that's the spot. That's the joint. And they have like a limited stock. So
Yeah,
when they run out, they're out. They close and it's like goodbye. Like that to me is badass. That's how everything should be, right? Everything should
yeah.
be like that, in my opinion. But,
I mean,
you know.
first off, you know that the quality of what you're getting is gonna be high. Like these
Mhm.
people make this stuff from scratch
Mhm.
and they're doing the whole process. They woke up at 4 a.m. to
Mhm.
get started. Like that's
Mhm.
the type of food because that's made
Yes,
with love. Like I'm not trying to
with
sound
love and
cliche,
care. Yeah,
but yeah,
love and care. Yeah. They went out to the market, picked out what meats they wanted. They have a meat purveyor that they know. Yeah. Love and care does matter a great deal. It's
yeah.
like, yeah, it makes me want to move to Kansas now. The barbecue was dope though yesterday, like, cause like I made Korean barbecue. Like, it's like Koreans, it's like a thing. I
Yeah, oh
made
yeah.
bulgogi yesterday, and I brought like it was like a big thing of bulgogi, and just grilling that and putting it out, and yeah, it was fun. It was nice, but I don't know. Some people brought like like soy sausages and shit. Like, okay, like all right, but it's like come on, like let's be real. There was this one guy, like he was like, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian. Like, what's vegetarian here?" And like this Japanese painter. Do you know Tomoaki by any chance?
No, I don't think
Like,
so.
he's like out there. He's like a spaceman. And his English isn't like perfect, but he can still communicate. And he was just like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, like that. That's soy," and it wasn't. It wasn't soy. Like, and the guy was eating it, and I was like, this doesn't feel ethical. Like, we need to tell him he's eating an animal. Yeah. And the guy,
Yeah.
he was like enjoying it, and somebody told him, and he like just threw it over like the fence. And I was like, you don't need to throw away the entire sausage. You know what I mean? Like, we could have eaten the rest of that. Like, just because you don't eat meat, like, don't fucking throw it away, into somebody's yard.
Yeah, I mean, I bet. I mean, he was probably thinking to himself too, like, and especially the time we're living in now, everyone's so paranoid. Like, these
Mm,
motherfuckers don't want to eat after me. Like,
that's true. And he
yeah,
was probably, yeah,
which I mean, even before COVID, that would have
yeah.
been something I would have been on. Like, if you're not my girl, I'm probably not gonna bite off of a sausage that you just bit off of.
Uh, I was
And my
gonna eat it.
girlfriend is a vegetarian, so I don't even have to worry about that.
Okay. No, I would have eaten it. I was like, what a douche. It's a whole sausage. It's like different from a hot dog. If it's like a bratwurst or something, like a proper sausage, it's like different, man. It takes forever to cook, and I was just annoyed. I was like, what a fucking vegetarian ass thing to do, to throw away a whole sausage.
Right,
When did you
right.
move out here from Kansas?
2016.
All right. So about 5 years now.
Yeah, almost exactly 5 years. It'll be 5 years next month.
Wow. That's cool. I moved out here in September as well, but 2015. So,
Okay, so
yeah.
oh man, so you're coming
Similar
up on your 6 years.
similar anniversaries, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was I want to ask you a question, like, because
Mhm.
I didn't get out to LA for like a year after you. What
Hmm.
was the scene like to you when you came here? Like when you first came here?
When I first came here, I didn't really explore much. I kind of stayed to myself. I was getting my master's degree at the time at UCLA, so I was kind
Okay.
of just really focused on that. I just kind of stayed within UCLA and was just trying to get grounding at UCLA, but it was hard. It was hard for a long time. I don't think I really felt um, some kind of like attachment here until like 2018. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it took me a while. What about you?
When I first got here, I was in a weird place.
Hmm.
Like I was trying to learn my way around this new gigantic city. I'd never lived in a city this big before. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Right.
trying to do that and do comedy and maintain a long distance relationship, it was just
Oh,
not ideal. Not good.
wow.
Uh Eventually all that shit fell apart, but yeah, I learned
Hmm.
a lot. You do
Mm-hmm.
learn a lot. Like first off, you got to understand the importance of building a community
Mm-hmm.
when you're moving to a new place
Mm-hmm.
because you come here for one thing, but
Mm-hmm.
you got to understand your life is more than just that one thing. And if you don't build a world around that,
Yeah.
then it's all just going to come crumbling down because you have
Hmm.
no support system.
Definitely. And I think LA is especially like that because
Yeah.
it, as you say, it is a huge city and there's so many pockets, even within like, one community, for instance, like the comedy community, right? There's so many pockets within that community because it's a huge one. And, it's, yeah, you have to find your people. You got to find the kinds of people who like accept you and understand you and you feel similarly towards them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and to kind of see through the bullshit too, right? Cuz like we said, it is Hollywood, right? A lot of people come here, right? They have an agenda, right? So kind of figuring out like okay, like who's real, you know? Who's like
Yeah.
willing to be real versus who is just here for Hollywood. Mm.
Right. Like I've tended to gravitate toward the people that'll be like, "Yo, Glenn, like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? Like,
Hmm.
this is not how to do it. You know what I'm saying? We need to like switch this up, or you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? You're not doing as well as you could be."
Hmm.
Like those type of people that'll be upfront with you and not sugarcoat shit, but at the same time
Hmm.
can sort of communicate that in like a grown up way that's
Yeah.
not, abrasive.
Yeah.
Like those types of people I value the most because
Yeah.
they are really those are the people who are really looking out for your best interests.
Hmm.
You don't want to be around like surrounded by people that are like, "Oh shit, okay, I see this person blowing up at some point. Let me just kind of stick
Mm.
around and just, hey, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool." You know what I'm saying? Just
Hang
kind of be
by.
like
Mm.
a yes man
Mm-hmm.
and be close to you just in hopes of getting
Mm-hmm.
some residual clout at some
Hmm.
point,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Somebody who's willing to work with you, right? Like give you feedback, but with love and like
Yeah,
true intention
yeah.
versus just being like, oh, you're awesome.
Yeah, and you could, I mean, after a while, you could see like when somebody is just genuinely like with the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like they're
Hmm.
genuinely about what you're about versus like, oh, this person's obviously just
Yeah.
here for clout or like trying to.
Yeah.
just rub elbows with you for the sake of it.
Right, right. Rub off of your achievements.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Like there's two types of people out here. There's people that are shooting for greatness, that are like
Mm-hmm.
trying to do something great, and then there's people
Yeah.
that want to be attached to greatness.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. How do you tell apart those people though?
I mean, it just comes with being tested,
Huh.
and like if somebody's willing to be in the trenches with you,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like somebody's willing to be there through every step of the process,
Right.
even on the shitty days where things are overwhelming. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? If they're handling that, that means something.
Yeah.
Like that means that person's really like down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas if the shit is hitting the fan and things aren't looking up and all you're hearing from this person is crickets every time, then
Hmm.
chances are,
Hmm.
they're what you would consider like a fair weather friend. You know what I'm saying?
I like that. Fair weather friend. Wow.
Yeah,
It's a nice short story title. Fair weather friend.
yeah. Also, I think it's the name of a Queens of the Stone Age song.
Oh, okay.
Don't quote
Shit.
me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is.
All right. No, I'm thinking about this a lot too, but kind of like from the other side of it. Because I have this tendency to get like I care too much, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like I give a shit too much. And like it becomes for instance, like this is just one example. Like last night I was hanging out with, fellow comedian friends. And one of my friends, she's trying to quit smoking pot. And this is a habit that she's had for 10 years. So it's very hard for her, right? And she has
Mm-hmm.
very legitimate reasons for doing it. It's like she wants to reduce her anxiety and paranoia. She wants to uh, get more motivated, stay on top of her shit. And she wants to be less forgetful, like she wants to level up in her career. And like good things are happening. So she wants to level up. And I was like, okay, yeah, like, if you want to quit pot, like that's a big step for you. I support you. And then last night I see her with another friend and he's like giving her pot, right? And I'm like, bro, like what like stop enabling her, right? But then that's her choice. That's her lot. That's her decision, That's her, way of like she's still in the process. Like it's hard to give up a 10-year habit like that overnight. So it's like I have to just kind of be like, okay, like, she can do whatever she wants. Like this doesn't mean that she's not quitting or not in the process of quitting, but in the moment it was just like hard for me to like not feel involved. You know what I mean? Because it was just happening in front of me with people I know. And, I had to like catch myself and then just turn back to her and be like, you know what, man, like, yeah, if you want to smoke a joint, like, yeah, you deserve it. Like, go ahead. Don't worry about me. Like, there's no judgment from my end. You know what I mean? But yeah, trying to like kind of reel back that over caring, because again, at the end of the day, like she's her own person. She's an adult. Those are her own choices. And me standing on the sidelines being like, you said you weren't going to do it. Why are you doing that? I just feel like that would stress her out more. And yeah, so I had to kind of feel, do the opposite, like not offer too much feedback.
Well, see, and that's what makes being that friend hard. That's why I respect
Yeah.
people who would like, and I'm not saying you did the wrong thing by any means, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah.
because I don't know this person,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
so I don't know their situation. Hell, I don't even know if they told the person that gave them the pot, like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. They know.
But
They were
at
in the
this,
know. Yeah.
but at the same time, I think what separates what separates like the realist of the real from like the average person is just they don't have that. Like, oh, this I'm worried about this person being stressed out or upset over what I'm saying. They just kind of come out and say it. Like,
Mhm.
and that's not always not always the best thing, but it definitely has a lot of value because sometimes when you're so deep into like a habit,
Mhm.
something that you've been doing regularly for like 10 years,
Mhm.
sometimes it does take that person to be like, okay, you're about to smoke weed, but remember when you were like, hey, I don't want to smoke weed anymore because it does this, this, and this. You're at that crossroads right now. This is what it comes down to. It's
Mhm.
not it's not a long term thing. It's something you have to it's a decision you have to make every day, every hour, every time it's in your face, you got to make that decision. So, yeah, I mean, I think that even say, she did smoke the weed, that same anxiety and paranoia and all that shit that she was trying to avoid by not smoking is going to come back because that's just what weed does.
Mhm.
So, either way, she's going to feel that whether it's you saying it to her or her saying it to herself. But yeah, I think it would help if she had somebody, and again, I don't know this person, but I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, I guess, as a person
Hmm.
who's also quit habits,
Mm.
to have that person be like, okay, this is what you want to do, but just know that these are the consequences. The
Right.
same consequences you brought up to me,
Mhm.
this is what you're putting on the line right now. If
Yeah.
it's worth it to you, then by all means, light that shit up.
Right. Yeah. I think that's sort of why it becomes difficult to become friends as adults. You know what I mean? Because it's like,
Yeah.
where's the line? It's harder and harder to know as we become adults. And a lot of my comedian friends, like, there are friends I made as an adult. And I think with like younger friends, like friends I've known from in childhood, I have
Hmm.
little less boundaries with them, and I'll like call it out and let them know as like tell them how it is. But even with them nowadays, I find myself withholding a lot more, and I think it's just because, like, yeah, ultimately, I don't feel like what I have to say will change their minds, you know? I don't even want to be responsible like that, for their decisions in their lives. Like, this is something I kind of stopped. Like, I told my a lot of my girlfriends to stop talking to me about their love problems. The reason why is because a lot of my girlfriends, all they do is complain about guys they're dating, or guys they're married to, or guys they're living with, or guys they're seeing. All they do is complain. Like, and by the time I meet the guy, I just hate him. You know what I'm saying? I fucking hate that guy because I've been listening to hundreds of hours of this bitch talking shit about this guy. They've never said anything nice. They never said anything, wholesome and sweet. They never said anything neutral. It was literally just complaining about this dude. And they don't leave him. They're with him, And I'm like, hey, I don't want to hear your shit anymore. We can
What if
talk
they're
about other
just
stuff, but I don't want to hear about your man anymore because all you do is talk shit about him and you just make me want to hate him.
what if they're just trying to keep you from trying to fuck him?
Oh my god, that's like not at
What
all an
if
issue. If,
Yeah, I know,
imagine
I
though,
know, I know,
that
I
is
know,
funny
I
though.
know.
That is funny. Yeah, that maybe
It's like
right.
he's horrible. Wink, wink.
Yeah, don't suck his cock when I'm not around. Yeah, that's
But I
crazy
mean,
though. Yeah, yeah.
and a lot of the time when I find myself in situations like that, it comes to me that like that person has very little self-awareness
Mm,
when it comes to well, especially when it comes to relationships, right? Like
mm-hmm.
how is it how is it that everybody you're with is just the worst?
Yeah.
How is it like okay, if that is the case, what is it about you that
Yeah.
not only attracts that energy, but
Yeah.
accepts it?
Yes. Mhm. Mhm.
Like, if, let me tell you something. If every time I got in my car,
Yeah.
the fucking airbag deployed and hit me in the face,
Yeah.
I'd be one bus driving ass motherfucker. I'd be on the
Yeah.
bus, I'd be on the
Yeah.
train, I'd be walking.
Other alternative ways of being mobile. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'd get another car.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Like,
Exactly.
I would
Exactly.
figure out, like, okay, why am I driving this car every day? This car is obviously
Exactly.
horrible to me.
Exactly.
But it's
Exactly.
Glenn, you're like not getting the point. Like, I'm talking about a person. You're talking about a fucking car.
Yeah. A car is not a
Glenn.
person.
Glenn. Like, it's just
I
it's just
can't.
like I was just talking to my girlfriend about this earlier, where it's like people are just getting into these relationships for the wrong reasons, and I feel like a lot of it is it's so goddamn easy to survive now that we
Yeah.
don't look at the things we're supposed to be looking at
Yeah.
until it's way too late.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've got a kid with this person who's a
Yeah.
horrible parent. You
Mhm.
were together for like 2, 3 years.
Mhm.
How do you not see the qualities in this person before that? It's like, yeah, we partied a lot and now we have a kid together and they still want to party and do coke all weekend.
But
It's like,
you also understand. It's like we always have that moment, right? You meet somebody, let's say they're hot, whatever, the sex is good, whatever it is, okay? It's and you see the shitty qualities. You see it. You of course you see it. It's there. It's happening. And you have a choice. Do you overlook it? Do you address it? Do you say, "Well, love is acceptance?" And or do you leave them, right? Like we have these choices, but more often than not, you know, people overlook it. They choose to overlook it. And then it keeps going, and then it's like you've been with them for 2 3 years, get married, bust out a kid. You've been overlooking this since day one, but you knew that this was a fucking problem, right? Instead of talking
yeah.
to the motherfucker that you should be talking to about it, you go and bitch about it to your fucking girlfriends and drive them insane, right? That's what
If
ends
I
up
were to
happening.
close my eyes right now, Grace,
Yeah.
I would imagine you just stress smoking a cigarette. Just the way you said that. Like, I know you're not. I know you're not. But if I were to close
Yeah.
my eyes, the way you said it, like this
Mhm.
fucking
Yeah. I smoked
like I I
smoked for
can't.
9 fucking years. Yeah. And you know what? You know how I gave up that habit? I used to smoke cigarettes for 9 years. I gave up that habit because I I was asking my boyfriend at the time. I was like, "Hey, let me get a smoke?" And he was like, "Oh, I only have 2." I was like, "Perfect. One for you, one for me." He's like, "No." And I was like, "Are you fucking serious? You're gonna be that fucking cheap? You don't want to give your girlfriend a cigarette?" We got into the biggest fucking fight over this, right? We got so ugly, screaming at each other like in the middle of the street, crying. It was awful. And then I get home and I was just like, man, that was an ugly fight over a cigarette. I'm done smoking cigarettes. I'm done. And I never smoked a cigarette again. I was finished. And I had tried quitting multiple times before, but that fight did it. Gone. And I quit drinking in a similar way. I had a negative association with it. There was like this bitch who's like, she's an alcoholic. She's an addict, right? And she's also a comic, and she's been stealing my jokes. Like she's been stealing my punchlines. And I was like, this bitch is forgetful. She can't remember whether I said it or she said it. She can rationalize anything because she's an addict. I don't want to drink alcohol anymore. Reminds me of her. I don't be like her. Stop drinking alcohol. Never drank again since then. Done. Done with alcohol. You know? And like that's how I kind of quit my habits. I'm like I associate it with something so negative, and it just see like it's very apparent to me how it doesn't help me in any way. It becomes so
Mm-hmm.
obvious to me that I can't overlook it.
Yeah.
So it requires some clarity from a person's end to quit habits, and that includes relationships, includes people.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And a lot of the things that keep these unhealthy habits going is the acceptance of things that you shouldn't accept.
Mm.
Like for instance, like I used to have, and I haven't really talked about this, which is
Mhm.
crazy because I'm like doing it on a podcast, like it's
Mhm.
hella public. But I used to have really, really bad social anxiety,
Mhm.
like really bad, to the point where I would go certain places and I would just shrink.
Hmm.
So in order to unshrink, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna have a couple drinks,
Mhm.
loosen up, and then one day I was like, why the fuck am I shrinking?
Right.
Like, why? And then once I figured that out, I'm like, well, I don't need to fucking drink anymore. Like I'll still have like a glass of wine with dinner, like
Sure.
with my girl or
Yeah.
something every once in a while, but
Yeah.
for the most part, yeah, I don't really drink it. And because of that, also
Yeah.
I quit smoking because
Mm.
I would like to smoke when I drank,
Yeah.
and it was a combination of getting more into doing musical comedy and like singing
Mhm.
a lot more. I was like,
Mhm.
man, I really should be treating my voice better.
Right.
And yeah, but I actually quit smoking through using CBD buds.
Ah.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like, I
Yes.
want to smoke, but I don't want to get high.
Exactly. Mhm.
So I found this website.
Mhm.
It's like this company from Oregon, and they
Mhm.
ship you this federally legal
Mhm.
hemp bud. It doesn't get you high. It
Yeah.
just it's great. And the thing
Yeah.
I noticed was after a while, I was like, I don't fiend for something
Yeah.
to smoke anymore because
Yeah.
the CBD doesn't have nicotine in it. Nicotine,
Right.
that's what, and all the chemicals and shit, that's what makes it like, oh, I have to have another one. I have to have another one.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
if you're
Yes.
not smoking anything with that in it, you smoke less. And then eventually, I just quit smoking that too.
Mhm. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I think none of that would have happened had I not just kind of sat down and just dug deep and be like, okay, what the fuck's really going on? Like, I had to figure that shit out first.
Yeah. How did you do that? Like the digging deep and figuring out what was making you shrink. How did you do that?
It's something I learned from a therapist that I went to like
Okay. Therapy. Yeah.
shit. It's
Mhm.
probably been 9 years or something.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I went to a cognitive behavioral therapist for a
Mhm.
while,
Mhm.
and she always told me like the way to work through issues that you have, like internal issues,
Mm.
is a lot of the time you got these issues early on, like in your childhood.
Mhm.
So you have to kind of try to go back and just dig through all that shit and be like, okay, what was happening when I was growing up that kind of
Mhm.
led me
Mhm.
to think and feel this way and have
Right.
it be so deeply ingrained in you,
Right. Mhm.
so I just kind of sat back and looked at that, and being a kid who grew up where I grew up,
Mhm.
I grew up in Wyandotte County,
Mm.
Kansas City, Kansas, like
Mhm.
predominantly black neighborhood,
Mhm.
high crime rate, you
Mhm.
know, uh, and
Therefore, a lot of trauma.
yeah, yeah. Well, not only that, I was different than everybody. I was the
Mm.
kid. I was the kid who, had a really strict upbringing.
Mm.
So I was kept inside a lot. I
I
was in
see.
front of the TV more than I was out in the streets.
Right.
My pops was like, "Hey, you're not gonna be like these other fucking kids out here in and out of
Mhm.
juvenile hall.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're gonna
Mhm.
grow up and be in and out of jail. No, no,
Mhm.
no. You're gonna be in the house. You're gonna study.
Mm.
You're gonna take up a instrument or something."
Mhm.
And I'm thankful for that. But
Yeah.
at the same time, as a kid, you wanna fit in. You
Right.
don't want to be the outcast. You don't want to be the oddball, but
Right.
that's just kind of how I grew up.
Right.
You know, like they, a lot of the kids around me picked on me. They bullied me, shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like eventually, you know, like once like I had like relatives and shit move into the neighborhood. And I had
Mm-hmm.
older cousins. They'd kind of
Yeah.
like stick up for me and stuff. Cause I was a
Right.
smaller kid too.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, you know, I think a lot of that came from that. Just
Got it.
the anxiety around being around my peer group came
Yeah.
from being picked on as a kid for
Yeah.
being different.
Yeah. It fucks with your self-esteem.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
then you fast forward, you know, damn near 30 years later, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I'm a dope ass performer. I'm creative as fuck. I'm tall. I'm good looking. Why the fuck am I shrinking around these people?
Exactly. Yeah. Living in Hollywood. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, it's okay to acknowledge those things. You know,
Yes.
I used to see it as like a bad thing.
Mm.
Like, oh no, I'm just little old me. Like, no, fuck that.
Right.
Own it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because it was real. It was a part of you. And accepting that past is part of accepting yourself and who you are and how you came to be. Um, and what instrument did you start playing when you were a kid?
Uh, the first instrument I really, really got serious with was the trombone,
Wow.
and I started playing that fifth grade.
Wow.
But before that, I actually taught myself how to play the clarinet when I was like 8.
Wow.
Because my sister was like one of those kids that took band for like a year and just
Okay.
quit,
Yeah.
but she
Mm-hmm.
still had the clarinet. And one day I
Mm-hmm.
was bored,
Yep.
and I was like, I'm gonna figure out how to put this thing together.
Yes. Yes. So you just had a knack for it.
Yeah.
You gravitated towards music, understood it well, understood instruments. And they're wind instruments too. It's fascinating because,
Mm-hmm.
on stage I see you play ukulele, guitar.
Yeah. Believe it or not, that's just a tiny guitar. I've never owned a ukulele.
It's a small guitar, like a baby guitar.
Yeah.
Wow. It's
Yep.
awesome. I love it when you play it. I love your songs. They're hilarious.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
They're really great. They're really, really great. Did you work on an album, like a comedy album?
So I'm about to release it's a 4-track EP of comedy hip hop songs,
Nice.
and they're all about food.
Yes.
All of them. Like I'm not even vegan, but I wrote a vegan song
Yeah.
just because I was like, that's how the whole thing started. I was like, would it be hilarious if I just wrote a song like a hard ass rap song, but about eating vegetables?
And avoiding dairy and all that shit.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And I did that one and just kind of sat in the can for a little bit. Like I put it out, but
Hmm.
I didn't do anything else. And then after a
Yeah.
while, I was like, I should write other food songs.
Yeah.
So I did, and now it's coming out on the 10th, September 10th, 2021 is when it's
Beautiful.
dropping.
What's the
All
title of the
streaming
album?
platforms. We eating out here.
Yes. That's,
And
that's beautiful. Mm.
yeah, and so I have like an alter ego. I don't even really call him an alter ego, but my rap name is G Rilla. It's G space RILLAH.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and yeah, I've also put out some other songs under G Rilla as well, but that's like my hip hop persona. It's either songs about just being honest about my financial situation
Mm-hmm.
or food, which I mean, that's really, if you want to get to know me, just those two things.
Yeah, money and food.
Yeah,
That's
basically.
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and I noticed that, you were producing tracks and stuff as well. Like starting the pandemic, I think. And I was like, yes. Because I hear that that is like a big step for, musical artists. Like when they decide to produce their own shit, it's like kind of a leap. I have a friend, maybe you know her, Jin Kim. She used to be in the LA comedy scene, but she quit comedy and she moved to New York, started doing music. And,
Hmm.
and she's a great singer. But when she was making her music, like she always hired like a white guy producer. And she was like, I'm getting sick of this. Like, I want to produce. I was like, produce it, produce your own shit. And she was like, I'm scared though. I was like, oh, is it very, very different? She's like, yeah, it's like there's a little bit of fear there. I was like, okay. But, you know, 6, 7 months later, she was producing her own shit. And I was like, good for you. That's badass.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like you once you get into it,
Hmm.
it's like, oh yeah, it's like making your own clothes. Like who the fuck
Yeah.
knows your body
Yeah.
better than you do?
Right.
You're like, oh, of course, yes. And you can still produce for other people too.
Right.
But when you're producing your own stuff, it's kind of like how we were talking about the conversation, like the people cooking the food
Hmm.
and waking up at 4 a.m. to make everything from scratch.
Hmm.
Like, if you can produce for yourself, it makes your final product like that much more special,
Hmm. Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. But I mean, not everybody's got the patience to do it,
Ah.
especially coming over from being just a straight up artist
Right.
and you want to just, all right, have the beat ready, you know what I'm
Right.
saying, or have the
Just
track ready.
arrive. Hmm.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Rather than going through that painful process of learning
Hmm.
how to fucking start a track in Pro Tools and
Right.
all that stuff, like it's tedious. But
Yes.
if you're obsessed with it, then yeah, you're gonna look up 6, 7 months later and like, holy shit, I've made some real progress. Wow,
Yeah.
you know?
It's well worth it. I
Yeah,
like that.
like I carry a recording studio with me everywhere.
Hmm. Right on.
Uh, this thing, my iPhone,
Hmm.
like I had this
Hmm.
is my notepad for
Yeah.
writing down song ideas, and then I also have obviously like my actual recording studio that is also kind of portable. And then in my room, I have like a makeshift recording booth for like
Yeah.
tracking vocals and stuff.
Yeah.
So to always have that world within reach I could tap into, uh, I think is a huge game changer.
It is. I think it's awesome that like in our time right now, like the times we live in presently, we're able to do that, you know? Because you and I are the same age. We're both born in '87, and like when we were kids, we were like downloading music from like Napster and LimeWire and shit, right?
12 hours to download a
Like
song.
literally 16 hours so I could listen to Mariah Carey singing Always Be My Baby. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
now we can sit in our fucking closets or wherever, or we could carry around a phone, make music on the go, on the fly. It's like whole new era, right? Whole new world.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty dope.
Yeah, and not only that, but make commercial quality music with
Yes.
it too.
Yes.
Like motherfuckers are winning Grammys for
Yeah.
albums that were produced in a bedroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you went back if you went back to the 80s and told someone that, they'd be like, "Listen, I'm not on that much coke, all right? You're out of your fucking mind. There's no fucking way. There's no way. There's no way you can do it. There's no way." Rock and roll. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. They needed so many people, right? They needed a whole team to like put down one track. And it's like, it's not like that. Literally one person is the team now, you know, doing everything. It's possible. It's wild. And
yeah,
it's
like
pretty great. Yeah.
for my producer brand, which is also a different name, DJ Snug. The So Snug was it's my like childhood name I grew up
Mm.
with my family, and
Mhm.
DJ that was my nephew's nickname, so I
Mm.
combined the two.
Mhm.
And yeah, with that, like obviously I make the beats on my computer,
Mhm.
and then when I upload them to like my beat store and YouTube and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I make the cover art in my phone,
Right.
upload that shit to the cloud.
Yep.
Then from my computer, take the cover art,
Mhm.
match it with the MP3. Bam, I got a YouTube video.
It's
Upload
out
the
there.
other one for the beat
Yeah.
store. Like I'm doing all this stuff and I'm like, this is so crazy, the world we're living in now, where you could just download an app
Yeah.
like, hey,
Yeah.
you're not a graphic designer, but here's how you can fucking
Yeah.
make your own art with a couple clicks.
Yeah. Yeah. We sound like old geezers now because like fucking, Gen Zers are like, what did it means yeah, it's like this is just to them it's just like a given. But for us it's like, no, like this shit is mind blowing, Like back
Yeah.
then we had to like do you remember like the CD cases? Like when you tinker with it, you could get all the labels out and you could put in your own sleeve. And I used to do that. Like I used to burn my own like, music onto not music, like a playlist, right?
Yeah.
And then I would like cut out construction paper, whatever, and like put it through the case and like make my own little thing. Like they don't understand. Like it was very fucking, archaic and hands
Crafty
on like
though.
that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like we had we had some next level shit. Like my dad has always been into technology.
Uh-huh.
Like he was the first person in our family, actually the first person I ever met, period, or knew ever that had a CD changer in their car. I was like,
Yeah,
what the fuck? He's like, yeah, I can put 10 CDs in it
yeah.
and just switch from CD to CD. And it's like
From your
this big
car.
ass box in your trunk
In your
that you can
trunk.
put
Yeah.
10 CDs in. I'm just trying to get past the concept of a CD. I'm like, wait a minute. So you can just hit a button and just skip to the next song? He's
That's
like, yeah.
crazy. You don't have to fast forward the tape.
Yeah. So he bought the very first, like one of the very first, like commercially available CD burners. It was made by
Mm,
Pioneer. And
yeah,
it was
yeah,
huge.
yeah.
It was
Enormous.
so big.
Yeah.
And you could put three CDs in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like switch, like select tracks from each CD and make your own
Fuck.
custom playlists. And then there was a program by Memorex
Uh-huh.
where you could make actual stick-on CD labels,
Yes.
had like special paper and all
Right.
that stuff,
Uh-huh.
and like little like labels for the jewel case, all that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as soon as all that stuff came out, we
Yeah.
went to Best Buy,
Uh-huh.
got all that shit, so I could make like my friends and make myself
Yeah.
like custom playlists and type out the tracks on it.
Yeah.
My favorite thing to do was to just put little random shit in the tracks
Uh-huh.
and wait for people to notice. Like I
Uh-huh.
burned my uncle a Tupac playlist,
Uh-huh.
and I put, there's a song called "They Don't Give a Fuck About Us."
Uh-huh.
I put featuring Kirk Franklin, like the gospel singer. He was like, "What the fuck? Ain't no goddamn Kirk Franklin on."
Just
I
throw it
would
in.
just, yeah,
Sneak
or
it
I
in.
would like, yeah, or like, I was a metalhead growing up,
Mm.
so I mean, I still am, but
Yeah.
I would like burn my friends, like kill switch engage CDs
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But I'll put like a fucking random ass like Britney Spears song or something in the middle of it, just like.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were a comic like forever since you were a kid.
Oh yeah,
Prankster.
I've always been silly.
Yeah.
I've always been like I grew up around silly people,
Mm-hmm.
so that's just always been in me. And I've always been musical as well.
Yeah.
So it was only a matter of time before I just sort of merged the two worlds together.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. And now you are Glenn Bolton, G Rilla, right? Fucking living
DJ
in
Snook.
Hollywood. DJ Snook. Living in
Yeah,
Hollywood.
yeah.
Doing his thing. Let's get into
Yeah.
some flashcard questions. I have some flashcard
Okay.
questions based on a TV show. All you have to do is just answer them however you would answer them, whatever you want to say. The
Okay.
show I'm talking about today is called Dear My Friends. It's a show that came out a few years ago. And it stars a lot of like old school Korean actors. Like these motherfuckers are in their 80s. Okay. One of them, she actually won an Oscar this past year. Yoon Jung. She won it for the film Minari. She played the grandma in this film and she won an Oscar, which is a big deal because South Korea's never won a Best Actress Oscar before. So it was a big deal for South Korea. And she's in this show, Dear My Friends. Um,
Okay.
but it was really a delight to see like old school, like they're literally almost 100 years old, right? Like they've been since the beginning of Korean television, right? Like these are these actors and like they're veterans and they're all in this show together and it's about like aging and what happens when you're older and you develop Alzheimer's when your children are being shits and da 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 da. It's about that. So
Hmm.
all right. So let's say you're a woman in her 60s named Nanhee, and you're a single mother who raised your daughter Wan on your own, raised her all by
Hmm.
yourself. And your daughter is in her late 30s now, and she's a pretty successful translator and a writer. Okay. The reason why you're single, though, is because you caught your husband banging some other lady. All right. Just walked in and he was just going at it with some other chick. So you have a deep disdain for unfaithful men. Just anybody who is unfaithful in their marriage, you detest them. Okay. But one day, your best friend, Chungnam, she tells you that your daughter Wan is having an affair with a married man. What do you do?
Do they have dispensaries in South Korea?
No, not yet.
Okay, I can't just like roll up a fucking a backwood.
You could probably find somebody. Yeah, you could
just
find
sit
weed
and
if you
be
look for it
like,
in Korea.
I knew she was just like her goddamn daddy. I knew it. She looked like him. She got that motherfucker's forehead. She got his forehead. Don't ask me why I'm talking like this. God damn it. I'm stressed. Like that,
Okay.
that'd be the first thing I would do. And then I would
Mm.
just sit and I would reflect. I would just,
Hmm.
because sometimes when shit like that happens, you gotta you gotta confront some really, 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 really uncomfortable truths.
Right.
And that's the first place I would go.
Hmm. After you
And
smoke a
then
J.
also, yeah, and then also I'd be like, look, okay, this is the point of my life where I realize my kid's not a perfect person,
Ah.
and that's okay.
Wow. Radical
I think
acceptance.
that's something a lot of people struggle with. That's something
Right.
a lot of people struggle with. Like, yo, your kid is a human.
Yeah.
They're a human. You love them more than anything, but they're still
Yeah.
imperfect
Yeah.
because they're
Yeah.
people.
Exactly. We're all
Yeah,
people. We're allowed to fuck up. They're allowed to fuck up. Hmm.
yeah.
Beautiful answer. Okay. All right. Second question. Let's say you're an elderly man named Seokgyun, okay? You're an elderly man. You have three daughters, three grown daughters. The eldest daughter was an adoptee, okay? Her name's Sunyoung. Sunyoung is married to a professor, which is like a big deal in Korea. And you and Sunyoung have a very fraught relationship because when she was in middle school, she came to your workplace crying in her little school bag, telling you that she was molested by your boss's son. And in response, you screamed at Sunyoung for dressing like a slut. And she told you that she wore pants and she went away crying. So your relationship to your eldest daughter, Sunyoung, was never the same since, for obvious reasons. You find out, okay, you find out from your wife that your daughter has been getting beaten to a pulp every single week by her deadbeat, not deadbeat, her professor husband, her successful, rich professor husband, who shamed your daughter for having been molested as a child. What do you do?
Well, I mean, I wish, I wish you could have asked this old man the question uh, way before any of this shit happened.
Mm,
But now that all this shit has happened,
mm,
I mean, fuck, like that's assuming that I would have handled it that way. You know what
hmm.
I mean?
Yes, it is assuming that you would have handled it. It's assuming that you are this character.
Yeah. That's a, I mean, shit, that's a tough one.
It's a heavy
Like, I
one.
think at that point, that person realizes, holy fuck, I've been emotionally absent
Mm,
and spiritually absent at a
mm-hmm,
time where I was needed.
mm-hmm.
I've put I've put the wrong things
Right.
in first place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, well, if I'm making money and
Right.
I'm feeding you and you
Right.
have all the nicest things and you're
Mm-hmm.
going to a private
Mm-hmm.
school and
Mm-hmm.
all this shit, you shouldn't have anything else to fucking worry about. Anything bad that
Right.
happens to you is your fault. It's a really
Mm,
piss poor mentality.
mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think someone that did experience that would just they'd fucking fall apart. They'd be crushed once they realized, holy fuck, like
Mm-hmm.
this entire time I've been a horrible father.
Mm.
And that's shit you can't take back. You can't get into a time machine and just
Right.
undo it.
Mm-hmm.
So first I think you would have to sort of process that and have a sit down with your daughter and
Mm.
just understand that there's a chance that you can just pour your fucking heart out and apologize, and there's still a chance that she's not going to forgive you. And you have to
Right.
prepare yourself for that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Gotta gotta confront your fears. Yeah. Which includes the potential of non-forgiveness from your daughter. Mm. Some real shit. A lot of South Korean elderly men go through this. You know, they were all militarized in Korea. Like South Korea, you all have to serve in the military. It's a requirement. And that military experience, which lasts about 2 years, it really hards up a man. It's like going to
Oh
prison.
yeah,
Really hardens them up. And they come out and they're older. They're a man now, and they're ready to now have a family. They're usually like women that've been waiting for them. Like wait for you, come back. They get married, have kids, and that part of them that was humane, that was human, is either removed or hardened up. So they have difficulty, you know, coming back into a human existence. And if you add on top of that poverty, right, long, years of suffering, war, all that shit, it's like, oof, it's almost impossible. That communication development is like, yeah. So there are a lot of
oh
elderly
yeah,
men going through this in Korea, I think.
oh yeah. And I think that it's a kind of a crazy double-edged sword, right? Because on one hand, South Korea's got, from my understanding, one hell of a military. Like these dudes are serious.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a story. Well, I mean, this really happened, but I think it was something like 250 South Korean Marines took out like 10,000 Viet Cong or some shit. They stayed up fighting for like 2 days straight or something crazy like that.
Hmm.
So as far as an effective fighting force,
Mm-hmm.
great. But like you were saying, how do we take that mentality and help it adjust, like readjust to civilian life?
Yeah. Being a loving
Like,
husband, being a loving father after you murdered all these fucking people. Okay. Right?
yeah, because at this point, even like from the, let's say, the middle of the 20th century on, it's a very small period of time
Mhm.
in comparison to how long humans have been around, right?
Mhm.
But just in that very small window of time, life has become so easy.
Mhm.
So easy to survive,
Mhm.
especially in a place like South Korea, which is like a developed country,
Mhm.
or a place like the US, which is a developed country.
Mhm.
The the gap between how real shit can get and then how the average person lives is so big.
Right.
It's so big. Whereas if you go back 100 years ago,
Right.
it's way closer.
Yep.
I mean, shit. If you want to have steak
Mhm.
100 years ago, you got to go fucking slaughter a cow yourself. You have to do that yourself.
Yeah.
You got to worry about fucking, like, especially if you lived in this part of the country back in the 1800s. This is the Wild West.
Right.
Literally the wild. You had to
You could
worry
literally
about
die.
marauders and
Yeah.
like there was real danger
Yeah.
outside your door every
Yep.
fucking day.
Exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
Fast forward now, it's like, okay, I live in West Hollywood. The
Right.
line at Gelson's is gone. Ah, what am I gonna do? I gotta be at a meeting in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's
Just
like
get
that's
my
what people
Kobe
stress
beef
about.
steak ready. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
all the steps between. So what I'm getting at is
Yeah.
men evolved to be providers and be protectors, right? Like the
Mhm.
successful men, the men who get to pass their genes
Mhm.
on,
Mhm.
have to prove
Mhm.
that they can handle themselves in the face of danger, that they can provide, they can go out and literally kill an animal and bring you back the meat.
Mhm.
So when the male physiology is subjected to that, something like war and military experience and shit like that and combat, they're sort of being put in their optimal physiological state.
Mhm.
So how the fuck do you turn that switch off to just be like, okay, go
Mhm.
back to living this weird, unnaturally comfortable life?
Right. Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
how do you do that?
Right. Yeah.
Because essentially going to war is like kind of what we're wired to do.
Mhm.
We don't have to do that anymore as far as like, living in a village and like a tribe and having to worry about invading tribes constantly and stuff like that. It's more like, oh, our country is going to war with another country. I'm going to put on a uniform. I'm going to
Right.
be formally trained.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like I have to worry about an invading army coming to fight me on Melrose. I don't like that's not as
Right.
close to my everyday life.
No.
So yeah, how do you fix that?
Yeah. I mean, you're basically asking, what do these people do with PTSD? You
Yeah,
know, because
because
that's what PTSD is.
yeah, PTSD isn't PTSD when you're at war. That's just survival
It's
instincts.
after.
PTSD
Mhm.
is PTSD when you're safe again,
Yeah.
but
Exactly.
you're still running
From the
on
sounds of
those
gunfire,
instincts. Yeah,
running from the sounds of bombs. Mhm. Running from running from something that feels similar to a threat to your survival. Like you're a working class man, you work at a factory, your boss's son molested your daughter. And if you go and talk back to your boss's son, you might get your, you know, job removed and you might not have any fucking money to bring home and feed your kid and wife. And that probably feels just as dangerous as a gun to your head if you have that much pressure on you, right? If there's no food at home, no money in the bank, and you're literally, living from hand to mouth. And it's like, does that require this level of anger and rage? And am I directing it at the right person by calling my middle school daughter a slut? and screaming at her after she's been abused, right? And so all this misfiring is, again, it's a result of PTSD. I'm glad you bring it up because it's easy for us to just kind of dismiss that as like toxic masculinity, right? It is. On the one hand, it is. But, there's a reason for everything. There's a reason for everything. And if we're human, it takes time for us to figure out what those reasonings are. And then asking ourselves, well, are we ready to, like you say, accept, right? Accept and
Yeah.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think, and also like the term toxic masculine, like that one kind of fucks me up because
Mm-hmm.
you're associating you're associating toxic behavior
Mm-hmm.
with masculinity, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, like, I think that actual masculinity is a
Mm-hmm.
good thing.
Mm.
I think masculinity should be cultivated. I think it should be encouraged because masculinity, in a large part, is how we got to this point. If we
Hmm.
didn't have strong men,
Mm-hmm.
like, all this shit was built. And I'm not saying women had no part in history and
Mm-hmm.
developing civilization. I'm saying like the physical, like, labor and the
Mm-hmm.
wars and all that shit were fought
Mm-hmm.
largely by men,
Mm-hmm.
right? So all that survival shit I was talking about, if you didn't have strong men in your area, you're at way bigger risk. Like, but I feel like all that shit's being lost because our whole purpose is become obsolete. Like, you don't need someone to fucking go out and kill a deer for you to feed you. Like, you don't. As a matter of fact, people kind of look down on hunting.
Hmm.
Especially out here. Like, it's
Right.
frowned upon.
To own a
So
gun. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or even just the act of killing an animal for food, like that. But that's literally
Right.
like that's literally the thing that helps a man advance in
Hmm.
life is having these traits. Like, for example, confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Confidence is a man's social and biological currency. A man without confidence is nothing. Like, you could be somebody who, let's say you've got this bomb ass tech job and you're making $1.4 million a year. You got a Porsche, a nice house. But if you don't carry yourself with confidence, you're still not going to have a very fulfilling life. None of the relationships you have are going to be meaningful because the world does not respect a man that does not have confidence in himself. And it's not magic, it's because a confident man is going to kill the animal. A confident man is going to defend the village. If a man's thinking, is being hesitant and not sure of himself, that's going to get him killed. That's going to get the village killed. We evolved with that. But then it's weird because now that none of that shit's necessary for day to day life, it's just, I don't know. It's just, it's people like a confident man. I don't know. I don't know why, but it's just kind of there.
I think the reason why terms like toxic masculinity are emerging, though, is similar to what you say. It's like there was this need for that kind of male aggression, right? To go and be a hunter and to go and bring home the deer carcass or whatever it is so that they could feed the family, feed the town, feed whatever. But it's like, no, we don't need that, right? I mean, men have become, how do I say, in a way domesticated. They're in offices now, wearing white collar, shirts and living that white collar life. Like that is considered like now power, money, living, like being in a high rise building, sitting in a fucking bougie ass office, you know. And it's like, where does that aggression end up going? Well, it's like, oh, let me go bang my secretary. She doesn't know any better. She's 21. She has no money. She'll suck my cock. Goes there. Infidelity. Ah, fuck my wife. Fucking nagger. Ah, fuck my kids. You know, my wife will take care of them. Right? The aggression ends up going somewhere else, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah, and then that ends up being called toxic masculinity, right? It's not, but I
Yeah.
do agree that to define all of masculinity as solely toxic is incorrect. I don't think that is correct. But when there are patterns of aggression where these aggressive and, as you say, powerful men who have money and stronger strength use it in an abusive way to hurt individuals in society, like women, like children, like people who have less power and less strength, that's when this term toxic masculinity ends up coming. Yeah.
I guess like I don't like the word masculinity even being associated with someone like that is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. You know what I mean?
I
Like
for
cuz
sure.
that's not
Yeah. Yeah.
masculine.
Mhm.
That's not masculine at
Yeah.
all. So, yeah, and I think that and you're right, like having a place to put that unused aggression is so
Mhm.
fucking important for men, and it's
Yeah.
something that we need to start learning at a very early age as boys.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a big proponent of like martial arts.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
haven't I haven't been on a mat in years. I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
me sit down, but I've got
Yeah.
quite a little gut going here, but
Yeah.
but no, like martial arts, that shit I don't like I was thinking about this. I was
Yeah.
thinking about this the other night.
Yeah.
Say I got two sons,
Yeah.
right? One of them is just your classic alpha male,
Uh-huh.
just all piss and vinegar. You know what I mean?
Like a jock.
I
Uh-huh.
want, yeah, I want to put him in martial arts to keep that shit in check.
Mm.
I want him to know, hey, you need to use this shit wisely, and you need to be humbled every day.
Mm.
You need to
Mhm.
be reminded every
Mhm.
day
Right.
that there's consequences that comes along with the shit, right?
Right. Mhm.
And my other
Mhm.
son's very soft spoken. He's
Mm.
very to himself,
Mhm.
very introverted. I want to put him in martial arts too
Mm.
to teach him, hey, you're capable. All
Mhm.
right? Like you're strong. You can
Mhm.
do this shit. You might not be the biggest kid in class, but you're made of something.
Right. Mhm. Giving him confidence.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. So I was thinking about I was like, yeah, it works. And even let's say I have a daughter. Let me tell you
Mhm.
something. So, and I gotta go after this, but I started training mixed martial arts in 2012,
Mhm.
like December 2012. And I trained at a gym that, has a pretty, to this day, has a fucking like awesome squad there. Like just dope. We're talking like people that fight in the UFC, work for the UFC, like the highest of highest level,
Mhm.
coaches, all that.
Mhm.
And among those people is a woman named Laura Sanko.
Mhm.
I think she's an analyst for ESPN now. Fought at the smallest weight class in MMA, 105 pounds. Tiny. I was literally two of this woman. And one day we're doing grappling, we're doing jujitsu, and I'm having a drink on the side of the mat. I look up, everybody's already partnered up, except for Laura. So she's like, hey, do you want to roll with me? You want to grapple with me? Let's go around. And I'm like, okay. Now, in the back of my head, I'm terrified because I'm like, she's so small. I'm a big, clumsy, 210-pound dude. I don't want to make a crazy move or something and like accidentally hurt her or something.
Mhm.
Like, I'm just trying to be very ginger. Let me tell you something. When I say I couldn't do shit,
Mhm.
when I say I got my ass handed to me,
Mhm.
as an understatement. You know why? Because I'm still going with somebody who'd been training probably for, I don't know, I'm just taking a wild guess, but 5+ years
Hmm.
at that point. So they're gonna know way more about martial arts than me. And jujitsu especially is the epitome of like the size doesn't matter martial art. Because if a woman who probably weighs, I don't know, a buck 10
Hmm.
maybe, can beat a guy who's twice her size. Fuck, if I had a daughter, I'd put her in jujitsu too. Teach her that.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, that's
Hmm.
valuable because not only does it teach you self defense, you're also gonna carry yourself better.
Hmm.
You're not gonna move through the world the same way.
Right. You're going to feel empowered by your
Yeah,
own abilities. And it seems to me like, with the things you do, like even with singing, right? Singing is like a form of breathing. You have to breathe when you're singing, right? And
yeah,
jujitsu is also meditative like that. Any form of martial arts is meditative like that. It's meditative and you're acquiring a sense of empowerment. So it seems like you practice these exercises in order to maintain and to try and be a good man. I think that's a good thing. All
yeah,
right.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So this has been really fun. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Glenn.